Picture this. You're driving home from a doctor's appointment. Your medication is in the passenger seat, your registration is in the glove box, and a lawfully owned firearm is somewhere in the vehicle because you thought that was the safest place to keep it. Then you get pulled over. In a matter of seconds, one normal movement inside that car could become the center of a life-changing legal dispute. And now, after a unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, one question matters more than ever. If something goes wrong during that stop, what will a court look at later? And could the mere presence of a gun in your car make that encounter more dangerous than you realize? Here's the most important thing to understand right away. The U.S. Supreme Court did not issue a new nationwide ban on keeping a gun in your car. It did not cancel concealed carry permits. It did not announce a federal rule making lawful gun ownership in a vehicle illegal. What the court actually did, in a case called Barnes v. Felix, was unanimously reject a narrow legal test that some lower courts had been using in police shooting cases arising from traffic stops. The justices said courts must look at the totality of the circumstances, not just the final split second before an officer uses deadly force. That is the official, confirmed ruling. Anything beyond that needs to be treated carefully, and that difference matters, especially for older drivers, retirees, and anyone who values staying out of legal trouble. A lot of online chatter has turned this into a dramatic claim that the Supreme Court changed the rules for every gun owner who drives. That oversimplifies what happened. The court revived a civil rights lawsuit brought by the family of a man who was shot during a traffic stop because lower courts had focused too narrowly on the final 2 seconds before the shooting. The justices sent the case back for another look, using the broader constitutional standard. That means the ruling is about how courts evaluate police use of force during a stop. It is not a direct rewrite of firearm possession law. So why are so many people saying, "Don't keep a gun in your car"? Because while the ruling does not ban it, it highlights a very real danger. During a traffic stop, an officer may not know who you are, why you're reaching, or whether you are moving toward paperwork, medication, a wallet, or a weapon. If a firearm is loose in the car, in a console, under a seat, or mixed in with documents, that can raise the level of perceived threat very quickly. And under this ruling, courts will now be told to look at the full sequence of events, including what happened before those final seconds. In plain English, every movement, command, misunderstanding, and escalation leading up to the critical moment can matter. That's where this becomes especially relevant for seniors and retirees. Many people over 45 keep important items in the car: reading glasses, pill organizers, insurance cards, veterans documents, disability placards, walkers, canes, or cash envelopes. Some also keep a firearm nearby because they spend time traveling, driving alone, or living in rural areas. But the more items you have to sort through during a stop, the more room there is for confusion. If you move slowly because of arthritis, hearing loss, neuropathy, or back pain, your actions may already look different from what an officer expects. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means the stop can become complicated faster than many viewers realize. Let me make this even clearer. Who is directly affected by this ruling? Anyone involved in a traffic stop where force is used, because courts reviewing that force can no longer isolate only the final instant of perceived danger if the case arises in a jurisdiction that had been using that narrower test. Who is not directly affected? Law-abiding gun owners who are simply asking whether the Supreme Court outlawed firearms in vehicles. It did not. Your state's firearm transport laws, permit requirements, notification rules, and storage rules are still what determine whether carrying a gun in a car is lawful in the first place. This decision sits on top of that reality. It does not replace it. And here's something else viewers need to watch out for. Some online posts are mixing this 2025 ruling with a different unanimous Supreme Court case from 2021 called Caniglia v. Strom. In that case, the court said police could not rely on a vehicle-related community caretaking doctrine to enter a home without a warrant and seize firearms. That case was about homes, not routine traffic stop gun possession in a car. So if you've seen dramatic headlines lumping these cases together, slow down. They are not the same ruling, and they do not create the same legal rule. Now, think about your own habits for a second. If you were stopped tomorrow, would you know exactly where your registration, proof of insurance, and any firearm in the vehicle are located without having to reach around or explain in a rush? That question matters because the practical risk is not only legal, it is situational. If your gun is legal but poorly stored, the officer may see it unexpectedly. If your paperwork is in the same compartment as the firearm, you may need to reach toward the weapon just to get your documents. If you are nervous and start talking while moving your hands, the tension can rise. And if your state requires immediate notification that you are carrying, failing to do so can create another layer of trouble. On the other hand, in states without a duty to inform rule, blurting out the wrong thing at the wrong time can still cause confusion. That's why viewers should focus less on online slogans and more on their own state law and on safe, predictable behavior during a stop. In just a moment, I'll explain what would actually need to happen before any broader legal consequences flow from this ruling, and why there is still a lot of confusion about what this case does and does not change. First, the timeline. Barnes v. Felix was decided on May 15, 2025. The court did not award damages on the spot. It did not issue arrests. It did not create a federal compensation program. It did not instantly change every police department policy overnight. What it did was send the case back so the lower courts could reevaluate it under the proper standard. That's a crucial point for viewers who want facts, not fear. Supreme Court decisions often set the legal framework first. Then lower courts, agencies, attorneys, and police departments respond over time. So, what would actually need to happen before this ruling has broader day-to-day impact? Lower courts would have to apply this standard in future cases. Police training materials may be updated, lawyers will cite the decision in excessive force lawsuits, and departments may review how officers are trained to approach vehicles, issue commands, and assess threats during stops. But there is no magical date on which every traffic stop in America suddenly changes. This is a judicial standard, not a mailed notice, not a benefit payment, and not a new federal gun registration rule. That said, the practical lesson is immediate. If you are a gun owner, especially an older driver, do not treat your vehicle like casual storage. A firearm rolling under a seat, sitting loose in a door pocket, or tucked into a cluttered console may be legal in some places and illegal in others, but either way it can create a dangerous misunderstanding during a stop. A secure, lawful storage method matters. Easy access for you can also mean sudden visibility for an officer. And from a safety standpoint, a car is also vulnerable to theft, which is another reason many experts warn against leaving guns in vehicles unless absolutely necessary. Do you think most drivers, especially older ones who have been doing things the same way for years, realize how quickly a routine stop can become a high-stakes misunderstanding? Here's what viewers should do now. First, check your own state's rules on transporting firearms in a vehicle. Do not assume the law in your state is the same as the law in the next state over. Second, separate your paperwork from your firearm. If your license, registration, or insurance card is in the same place as the gun, you are setting yourself up for a tense moment. Third, if you are pulled over, keep your hands visible, stay calm, and avoid sudden reaching. If you need to move to get documents or medication, say what you are doing before you do it. Fourth, if your state requires disclosure that you are carrying, know exactly when and how that rule works. And fifth, if you do not absolutely need to keep a gun in the vehicle, think carefully before making the car your default storage space. It's also worth warning viewers about misinformation. No, this ruling did not say every officer is now liable whenever a shooting happens during a traffic stop. No, it did not say drivers can ignore commands because courts will look at the full context later. And no, it did not create a new constitutional right to stash a gun anywhere in the vehicle. What the court said was narrower and more important than the rumors. When force is challenged under the Fourth Amendment, judges must evaluate the full context, not just the final instant. That may sound technical, but in real life it means the seconds leading up to a stop can matter just as much as the last second everyone sees in a headline. So if you take one message from this update, let it be this. The Supreme Court did not outlaw guns in cars, but this 9-0 ruling is a serious reminder that traffic stop situations are judged in context, and context can become dangerous when a firearm is inside the vehicle. For seniors, retirees, and Social Security recipients who value staying safe, staying lawful, and avoiding unnecessary confrontation, the smartest approach is simple. Know your state law, store any firearm lawfully and securely, keep your documents separate, and never assume an officer knows what you're reaching for. That is the clearest summary tonight. The confirmed fact is a unanimous Supreme Court decision in Barnes v. Felix, requiring courts to examine the totality of the circumstances in deadly force cases arising from stops and arrests. The speculation is everything online that tries to stretch that into a new nationwide ban on car carry. The practical takeaway is not panic. It is preparation, caution, and clarity. And if you want, I can keep doing what the headlines often don't do. Separate verified court rulings from rumor, explain what they actually mean in plain English, and focus on the details that matter for older Americans trying to protect their rights, their safety, and their peace of mind. If that kind of coverage helps you, consider subscribing and checking back for future updates. Before you go, one last question. Would you like future updates like this to cover more Supreme Court rulings, Social Security changes, or practical legal issues that affect everyday retirees the most?